Hello everyone and welcome back to the NPC Dungeon. Today we're talking about character intros, and we're talking about them from the DM's perspective. I already have a video all about running a first session of a campaign, and I kind of discussed this topic briefly there, but this video is going to zero in on the very first part of that, where everyone's characters are getting introduced. That being said, this video does kind of assume that the PCs don't already know each other and not already together, and that you're going to be spending some time zooming in on each of them individually. That's kind of what I mean when I say character introduction. So if you're still here after that intro, thank you. You truly are a wonderful viewer, and I really hope that you enjoyed this video. So let's get started and let's learn something. The first thing that I want to say about character intros is discuss it with your players. Just getting their backstory isn't enough. With only that information alone, you might craft an intro that sounds good to you, but remember, this is not your character. This is your player's character. How would you feel if you were thrown into a game in a way that you had no say in? Keep in mind that though this might only sound like it affects one session, this first session sets the tone and the stage for the rest of the game, so it's important to put a lot of thought into it. There's a reason why there are 1,001 videos about starting campaigns, and a lot less about the second, third, and 20-second sessions. But there is a big worry here. You might be thinking, well, if I talk to my players about the intro, doesn't that give away the first quest and spoil the story? Not necessarily. You can tell your players the basics of it without giving anything away. Let's say they're all going to meet up with a powerful benefactor for the first job. You can tell them that. Tell them the setting they'll be starting in, give them enough to work with, and answer questions as necessary. And honestly, this is stuff they should know anyway. When you're starting a campaign, it's important to tell your players some of the basic themes, quest types, locations, etc., so that they have inspiration for making characters, and even more importantly, so that they know this is a game that they'll be comfortable playing in. And then once you give them this information, you and whatever player you're working with at the time can craft a scenario. Maybe the player wants to start out in an inn, in a bar fight, negotiating with a small-time smuggler or something else. Work within the parameters that your player has given you, with their backstory, and with the scenario you discussed, and then build an encounter around it. You still have plenty of freedom to surprise your players, and still have lots of fun with it. All of this is key to keeping your game character-driven. And my next point stays right on track with this theme. Try to make intros personal to the PC. Try to bake their backstory into it and make it an opportunity for them to showcase who their character is. After all, this is their intro. You want them to make a good first impression. This is where you start to actually craft the scenario you put your player in at the start. Are they a very family-oriented knight traveling abroad for the first time? Maybe this is their goodbye scene to their family. Are they a cutthroat criminal in deep with the wrong people? Maybe this intro is a tense negotiation with an old client they did a job for recently. Now, like I said earlier, discuss this with them, ask them if they have any ideas, and run any potential concepts that you come up with by them as well. And for a last little tip about keeping these intros personal to the PCs, don't make them too personal. Make sure that you know what your player does and does not want revealed about their character very early on. Player comfort is the most important thing, and your players put a lot of trust in you as their DM, so don't spoil that. Okay, so now you have a scenario. What's next? Well, actions, activities, dialogue, in short, making this intro into an encounter. And that's the key too. Thinking about the intro as an encounter, albeit it might be a relatively short encounter, but it's an encounter nonetheless. This is what I meant earlier when I said to fill up the scenario with things for your players to do. And it's also what I meant last week when I said to give your players things to do, options, and agency very early on. That was from a video about starting campaigns, and if you haven't seen it, I'll leave a link and a card to it as always. But this point boils right down to the fact that the intro is not just, oh, here's your character. It is still a real part of the game, and the point in time where your players get to have their characters make their first impressions. If you make these really passive and inactive, you're setting the stage for a game that is passive and inactive where your players aren't pushing the story forward. For example, if you go with a knight example I gave earlier, where your player is a knight leaving their family for the first time, maybe they have someone who is upset they're leaving, and it's up to the player to handle that. One family member might give them a gift or be worried about them. What will the NPCs do and say, and how do you think the player will respond? And even then, what will the backdrops of these scenes be? How will you set the stage for them? If one family member is an actor, maybe the player catches them rehearsing. If one or more of them are children, maybe they're playing or something. These subtle details give you more to work with, make these scenes more dynamic, and allow you to really paint the image for your players. And as you might guess, this does require a bit more planning. It's important to think about what your players might do in place in these scenarios, so that when they do act, you have a lot of different scenarios in your head to pull from, so that you can react and pull them together. But trust me, it is worth it. And lastly, make sure that whatever this intro is, it is related to, or at least leads into the story. You could have all your players just having a normal day and meet up by chance, but I find that it's a lot easier to start a story if you actually have something going on. Maybe all the players are going to meet with the same contact about a job, or are all about to embark on the same journey. With a knight example, they are leaving, so all the emotions they'd be feeling at the time are kind of baked into the scenario know of their introduction. With the criminal example I gave earlier, maybe they're in some kind of meeting and something goes horribly wrong. Now they have to flee, and that's how they get tangled up with the players. And that's it. I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and thank you so much for watching. Feel free to leave a like if you liked the video and subscribe if you really liked it. If you think I missed anything, have feedback, or just want to say hi, feel free to leave a comment. I try to respond as often as I can, and come back next week where I'll be talking about some general player tips for playing your character. Feel free to check out 2 of my previous videos appearing on your screen right about now. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, let's learn something.